So today, as if we didn't know, Gary Gensler gives up the ghost and exposes himself. He's quoted as saying almost all crypto is something like scam artists, frauds, hucksters. Truthfully, what in his war against cryptocurrency, which began on Monday with the lawsuit filed against Binance, by the time when the lawsuit was filed against Binance, you noticed that there was a huge sell-off in the market and there was a big bloodbath in the response. By the next day, when he filed suit against Coinbase, he had already exposed himself as a bad faith actor and a fraud himself. It's clear, without him saying anything about cryptocurrency in today's quotations, that the guy was just trying to maximize the damage he could do to the crypto industry. And it was also clear that he was acting in really bad faith. Because with the initial filing, it was pretty intense, the lawsuit he filed against Binance. There were actual criminal allegations in there. And he tried to freeze some of the assets, which in and of itself is heinous. The American assets. He's tried to freeze, if you have crypto on Binance, he was trying to freeze your money as if that somehow helps you. It doesn't. It doesn't. Like I said, a bad faith actor. What he's actually guilty of doing is regulation by enforcement. But what it was clear on the next day when he sued Coinbase, Coinbase has a lot bigger history with the SEC. And if you've been following this at all, you know that Coinbase, he didn't go get as explicit and as destructive with his lawsuit. He just accuses them of basically trying to sell securities. But Coinbase has a long history with the SEC. They met with them at least 30 times trying to get regulatory clarity to avoid just what happened yesterday. And he would not give it to them. So in other words, the law enforcement organization, the person in charge of enforcing the regulations, was avoiding spelling out just what those regulations could be. He was vague on purpose. Why? So he could regulate by enforcement. So he could be destructive. He tried to actually execute a 1-2 punch against cryptocurrency. And it would have worked if it weren't so transparently that's what he was trying to do. The first response to Binance, people sold off. They got scared. They thought, oh my gosh, is Binance, they thought it was a legitimate undertaking, and they got scared. They said, is Binance the next SBF? That's why there was a big sell-off. When he filed suit against Coinbase the next day, then everybody understood we're dealing with the fraud. We're dealing with somebody who is literally just trying to harm crypto just for its own sake. Probably because the government is putting out its own version of cryptocurrency, I think sometime in July, slated to come out. So he's trying to maximize the damage to the crypto community. That's pretty obvious. You would not do a 1-2 punch like that unless you were trying to really institute a huge sell-off. That's what he was trying to do. And it was transparent too because Coinbase is, like I said, worked very closely with the SEC to try and get regulatory clarity because they want to stay in the United States. And he has been vague and opaque on purpose. Think of it this way. You live in a town and the sheriff has it out for you. And he won't put up any signs to tell you what the speed limit is. And you keep going to the sheriff's office, how fast are we allowed to drive in this town? He goes, oh, who's to say? Who's to say in our modern times how fast to drive? Then you pull out of your driveway and you're driving 35 down the street and you broke the speed limit. You're like, you wouldn't tell me the speed limit. That's exactly what's going on. That's exactly what was going on with Coinbase. They were trying to get regulatory clarity so that they could, but also as a side note, this whole idea is that there's only two choices for cryptocurrency. They're either securities or they're commodities is ludicrous. Who invented that idea? Who does it serve other than the SEC? First of all, securities sell on things like the New York Stock Exchange, and there may be some similarities between some of the cryptocurrencies and securities. That doesn't mean they are identical. Couple of things they may have in common. Some of them may be centralized. Some of them may have had an ICO, which is effectively an IPO. Some of them may make money off of the things like Axie Infinity. But that doesn't mean that they are identical to securities. There could easily be a whole new regulatory type of environment for this entirely different asset class than what we've been dealing with in the past. Gee, wouldn't that be intelligent? That would actually make sense. But he doesn't want to do that. Why? He really wanted to harm cryptocurrency. Honestly, he would not have done one after the other like that if he wasn't actually, thinking in the net effect of this. Crypto will survive. Crypto will still profit. Crypto is coming, and crypto is basically going to happen. The only question is America going to be in the forefront, or is some bad faith actors like Gary Gensler going to chase all of it, all of our exchanges offshore and all of our innovation offshore? Looks like for the time being the latter. That's all that's going on. It's not good. It's not right. He's not doing anything even close to the right thing. There is no reason to support his actions. As a matter of fact, if you believe in cryptocurrency at all, you should call your congressman and complain about his behavior. That should be step number one. Why? Because he's not operating in good faith. He's literally just trying to harm cryptocurrency, and that was obvious. So there you have it. That is my 2 cents on the topic. How is it going to affect crypto overall? We'll see. It's going to take a while for he's accused a bunch of things like Cardano and Polygon and Solana of being securities. It seems to me like the choices is just the marquee names, because there are some things that could potentially mimic securities more closely. Again, he doesn't lay down the criteria. So he has a regulatory environment that nobody can comply with, and then complains that nobody complies. Why is he doing that? So that he can regulate by enforcement, so that he can sue people after the fact. That's exactly why he's doing that, to maximize the harm that he can cause. There's no other possible explanation for that. He's had ample time to put out a clear set of criteria as to what would constitute a security as opposed to a commodity. And a lot of people would obey that. Even if they were putting out new projects, they would tailor their new projects to have it comply so that it wasn't a security, it was in fact a commodity. But he has deliberately kept that vague and opaque on purpose. Then he's suing people after the fact to try and say, well, these are securities. Why is he doing that way? So that he can harm the project. That's literally why he's doing it. So he can cause maximum harm, regulation by enforcement, and maximize the harm that he can do to cryptocurrency. But it isn't going to work. He's not going to affect the overall crypto market, barely at all. He will ultimately, it's ironic that it's called Ripple, because he will barely be a ripple, an afterthought. But it may dramatically affect how crypto develops in the United States. To our loss, to our detriment, to the benefit of nobody who lives in the United States, and to the harm of all of us. Because crypto is going to be one of the 3 or 4 biggest asset classes of the next 20 years. It's going to dominate the landscape. That much is clear. Who is going to be the innovators and who is going to be in charge? That isn't clear. And we have an enemy, and his name is Gary Gensler. So there you have it, kids. That is my opinion.